All right. So I think it was Friday or Saturday, I sent out a GitHub invite to Mike Platoon's organization. I hope everyone received it and accepted it. There are a couple of people that are there's like 4 people that are pending invites. If you need me to resend those invitations, please let me know. But with that, I'm just going to go over GitHub real quick and kind of how it's structured. So GitHub, has anybody heard of GitHub before? Yeah.
Yes.
What is GitHub?
It's like a repository of for developers to share code with others.
Yep, that's definitely one thing it does. Anybody else?
Source control.
Source control. Yes, that it does have some source control in it. But GitHub is really, it's just a repository of where you can save your code. So just like if you know like Dropbox or Drop or Google Drive where you can store documents and everything, GitHub is a way where you can just store your code so it doesn't get lost. So if your web or your computer breaks down and your code is stored on GitHub, you can clone all your code down from GitHub. In addition, you can have different versions of your code or version control, as well as you can share your code to other developers, kind of like what we're doing right now. We have all these people in our GitHub organization. So on Saturday, I believe it was, you should have received an invite to Mike Platoon's GitHub organization. So this is what we're going to be utilizing day in and day out. This is where all your challenges are. This is where all the lecture material is going to be at. So please, I highly recommend saving this, bookmarking it somewhere. So, because you're going to be coming to this day in and day out. If you did not receive a GitHub invite to it or you can't find it, please reach out to myself or specifically Noah, and she'll resend an invite to you. So GitHub is broken down into repositories. So I'm going to just zoom in right here. Is that better? Can everyone see that? Better? So there's repositories. There's 95 repositories. These are all the challenges that you're in for Mike Platoon. But specifically in the curriculum repository, this is where everything is broken down into weeks and days. So right here in the curriculum, we have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. And we're going to cover some of this later. But if we go to week 1, in each week, it's broken down into days. So October 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. In each week, it has a weekly a README, which covers what we're going to be covering that week, why it is important to learn it, and what you'll be able to accomplish after going through all the material, all the challenges, etc. So, for example, this week, we're going to cover Git version control basics, GitHub, TDD. Why is it important? You can read through it, but Git helps you create different save points in your application. We're going to cover all that stuff. So if you want to know what we're going to be learning about each week, you can come into here and read the weekly topic, why it's important, and what you'll be able to accomplish after the topic. So we're in week 1. Now, if I click on day 1, which is October 5th, which is today, and I open up into a new tab, into a new window. Am I sharing it? Yep, okay. So if I come here, this is Monday, October 5th. We have weekly video resources. So these are actually YouTube resources from Kilo Platoon's week 1. So you can see everything that we cover in week 1. We record all of our lectures. The topics covered today exploring your IDE, VS Code extensions, and interacting with the command line. So that's what we're going to kind of cover today, later on after we install everything. So our core goal today is get your local computer just set up for the entire course. We're going to be installing a lot of software today. So you can keep your laptop open and start, once we go ahead and start installing everything, follow along with me. You're going to start using VS Code and get its settings all configured. You're going to be able to navigate your computer using the command line. So yeah, here's the lesson that we're going to actually cover with regards to the command line. But more importantly, we're going to actually start with our computer setup. Does anybody have any questions about how GitHub is set up with regards to the Platoon organization with all the challenges or all the repositories? Inside the curriculum repository up here, it's broken down by week. Each week has days, and each day has the core topics of what we're going to be covering that day. Does anybody have any questions up until this point? Or I should say, what questions do you have? Nope. All right. So with that, we're going to start with setting up our computer and installing a lot of software. I hope to have all this done by like 12:15, 12:30. And then we'll go ahead and take a lunch break. But just by the end of today, everyone should have all the software necessary to complete the rest of the program. So that's our main goal today, is by the end of the day, have all the software installed. We won't leave here today if somebody does not have their stuff installed. So with that, follow along with me. So we're setting the computer. This is going to be kind of chaotic. You're not going to necessarily know why you're installing what you're installing right away. That's okay. That's not the goal. Our goal is to just get your get a working environment. Not necessarily understand everything. Just please follow along. So I know I slacked out. You should have an Apple ID and have installed Xcode. If you haven't done that already, that is it. If you have a Mac, which everyone should have a Mac. If you have a Windows, you don't necessarily need to install Xcode. But it's a huge download. It's like 11 or 12 gigs. Yeah. So what we're first going to install is Slack, Zoom, sign up for Operation Code, as we mentioned earlier in the morning, VS Code, iTerm. So that for the next 10 minutes, we're going to install this stuff. So if I open up Slack into a new window, it takes me to the Slack's website, and I want to download Slack. I know everyone already has Slack installed, but I just want to make sure everyone has the correct version of Slack installed. You're going to want to download Slack, this white download button. Don't download on the Mac App Store. This is not what you want. You want to download directly from the Slack website. If you click it, you're going to download it here. I could say show in Finder. There it goes. Oh, shoot. Right here, when you click it, follow the instructions. So it's opening up Slack. I already have Slack installed. And once it's installed on your machine, you want to drag, let's see if I can have it. Well, anyway, you're just going to want to follow the instructions along once you download it. Next, you're going to download Zoom. Everyone already has Zoom. There it goes. So I'm downloading Zoom. Follow the instructions along with Zoom. So right here. And once you install it, it should be in your downloads folder, or it'll tell you to drag it and drop it, the actual application, into your applications folder. Once it's downloaded and installed, drag the actual application into the applications folder of your Mac. This ensures that it's installed at the root level of your computer. So if it's still in here, please download download it. I'm sorry, please drag it and drop it in the applications folder. Some of the applications automatically make you drag and drop it into the applications folder. And once you do it, so that's Zoom. Next, you're going to want to sign up for Operation Code. Again, Operation Code is a helpful resource for veterans to help them break into the tech community for just jobs, advice, and just general problem solving. Please sign up for it here. And then you can submit it. Once you have it, it's going to have its own Slack channel or Slack organization. So you can see here career advice, general help. So this is all Operation Code. It's a great resource. They know who Code Platoon is. We know who they are. We work together sometimes. After you sign up for Operation Code, you're going to want to download VS Code, Visual Studio Code. This is where you're going to so Visual Studio Code is essentially a text editor to where you're going to write all of your code. So we've all used text editors in the past, such as Google Docs, Microsoft Word, your Notepad on your iPhone or Android. It's essentially a place to write code. Whereas like a Microsoft Word is got specific features that makes it easy to write papers and stuff. Visual Studio Code is developed specifically to write code. It's got a lot of features, a lot of things that make you write code faster. So if you want it on a Mac, you can download it here. And then wherever you unzip it. So I'm like downloading here. If I open it up and unzip it, once it's actually downloaded right there. So like right here, Visual Studio Code 3, because I already have ones downloaded. Once your Zoom is installed, once your Slack is installed, once Visual Studio Code is installed, drag it and drop it into the applications. That's a crucial step. Make sure you drag it and drop it into the applications. Next, you can download iTerm. This is specific to Macs. So if you're on a Windows machine, you're not going to be able to download iTerm. But where is it? Download. So if I wanted to download iTerm, this is essentially a way to interact with your computer in a non-GUI graphical user interface way. So right here, I can show in Finder. There is iTerm. I'm unzipping it. It's right here, iTerm 3. If I drag it and drop it into the applications, see, here's everything that's in applications. Where is iTerm? So I actually have multiple iTerms in here for whatever reason, because I just installed like 3 of them, but you'll really only need one. I'm going to delete these. Okay. Looks like my iTerm is open. So make sure you drag that and drop it into the applications folder. So download Slack, drag and drop it into the applications folder. Download Zoom, drag and drop that into the applications folder. Sign up for Operations Code, download VS Code, drag that and drop it into the applications folder. And then also download iTerm and drag that into the applications folder. So, and then stop right there. So over the course of the next 5 to 10 minutes, go ahead and download Slack, Zoom, sign up for Operations Code, download VS Code and iTerm, and then we'll keep going with the InstallFest. All right, I didn't have that many questions about people running into any issues downloading Slack, Zoom, signing up for Operation Code, VS Code, iTerm. So again, we downloaded Slack. That's where all of our communication is. Downloaded Zoom. That's what we're using right now. So everyone should already kind of have that, but some people might not have. We signed up for Operation Code. Great community. for veterans and breaking into the tech community. Also, if you want like a mentor or anything like that, they do that as well. VS Code, again, it's a text editor where we're going to actually write all of our code. We did download iTerm or iTerm 2. That's, again, how we're going to interact with our computer in a non-GUI way. This is what iTerm 2 looks like. Yours may not look exactly like mine yet, but we will get you there by the end of the day. VS Code also has a built-in terminal, so kind of like this, and we're going to be using that going forward a lot as well. But with that, let's move forward. So again, today we're going to install a bunch of software. You don't necessarily need to know what it does or how it's doing what it's doing, but this is all just to get your local machine set up with all the software necessary to complete the course going forward. So does anybody have any questions before we start? Because hopefully we can get through this in the next 30 or so minutes. Nope. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is launch Visual Studio Code. So if you actually open up Visual Studio Code, there it is. I'm going to actually close it and launch it. So right here, this is Visual Studio Code. Again, it's a text editor. We can write stuff. But with that, the first thing we're going to do is install a command, a code command that allows us to open a file or directory in VS Code text editor from the command line. So after installing VS Code from the website and putting it in your applications folder, please follow the instructions up to including restart the terminal. So if I follow this link, I'm going to close all these other tabs. I open up this link, and if I follow all these instructions up until here, you can go ahead and do that. So we're going to launch VS Code, which I already did. It's right here. You're going to open up the command palette, which is Shift Command P. Where is it? So if I do Shift Command P, it opens up this little like input box, or you can go to View Command Palette right there. And then if you type in the word code right here, and you see the shell command install code command path, go ahead and click that, and you should be good to go. So it's right here. If you type in shell command, just follow these instructions and then restart the terminal. Once you do all that, you should be able to just go into a terminal such as iTerm and type code, click enter, and it should automatically open VS Code. So go ahead and do that right now. Again, please reach out to myself, Noah, Mary, or Alyssa if you are having any issues. Give you a couple minutes to do that. 11:32. So now everyone should have installed the code command. If not, we can work through it later, but it's pretty straightforward. But if you have any questions about it, please reach out later on. So the next thing we're going to do is install Homebrew. Homebrew is the missing package manager for Mac OS. What does that mean? It essentially allows you to install, maintain different versions of different types of software on your MacBook or on your Mac. So we're going to be installing a lot of different software, and we're going to be doing it through Homebrew. And this allows us to manage different versions of different software on our machine. So the way we can do that is if we type in up in here so if you see this, this represents our terminal. So right here we see this little $sign. I'm in my terminal. If I zoom in on my terminal, it's got this little $sign. If I literally copy and paste this which brew and type into here, which brew, not including the $sign. So if I just copy and paste which brew and paste it into my terminal and click enter, I should get something that looks like user local bin brew. If you've done this already, you may have already installed it someplace, but if you've done which brew and this shows up, you're good to go. If not, you can run this user bin, this thing, and then run that. So Homebrew is going to be doing a lot of work for us, like such as managing software versions. It's always crucial to make sure it's up to date. So once we do which brew, and if that's all good, we can copy and paste and update Homebrew. Whoops. So if I it's better just to copy and paste things instead of manually typing them, because you generally make mistakes when people type. So I'm going to type brew update, and now it's going to update Homebrew for me. It's going to take a little bit of time. That's okay. So go ahead and do that. Great. That's fine. Now I can say brew doctor. So Brew Doctor is going to tell us a lot of stuff. You'll want to read through each item and attempt to resolve issues for Homebrew. Warnings are good to read, but not mandatory to fix. We're ideally shooting for a message that says your system is ready to brew. So if I do Brew Doctor, my system's going to not break. It's going to say some things. So I need to update Xcode, but unfortunately I don't have enough space on my machine to update it, but that's fine. But it's just a warning. But other than that, it should say your system is ready to brew. So I'm going to give everyone 5 minutes to do that to 11:40, and then do all of this, and then stop right before adjusting the path to Homebrew. So next, we're going to adjust the path for Homebrew. So just like we were installing like Zoom and Slack and iTerm and VS Code at the root level in the applications folder, that's at the root level of your user on your computer. We also want to install all this software we're about to install at the root level of your user. And so in doing so before we used to just be able to drag and drop stuff into the applications folder, but since we're installing everything from the command line going forward, we're going to have to make sure that Homebrew, the path for Homebrew is at our root level. So we'll start by inspecting the current path. So right here, we're going to copy and paste this echo path, whatever, pipe, tr, blah, blah, blah. Without the $sign. So if I copy the echo path into my terminal, click enter, ensure that user local bin comes before user bin and comes before bin. So if I look in here, I've got all this stuff, but I've got user local bin comes before user bin, comes before bin. If that's how yours is, that's totally fine. You're good to go. It doesn't matter if there's another user bin or an S bin or applications or anything else. As long as these three come in that specific order, you're good to go. If not, you're going to have to open up your bash profile, which we'll get to later, and then copy some stuff in there.
Does it matter that, after it says the directory MacBook Pro tilde, I don't have a $sign, it's a percentage sign?
Is the percentage sign what, is that,
I have that as well.
that is a different terminal. It's not bash. It's, do you know what it is? Is it Zesh?
Yeah,
ZSH.
ZSH? Yeah. It should still work. There might be
It
some.
worked, I was just curious.
Yeah, it just depends on what shell you want to use. You could use bash or Zesh, but we use bash.
When you open up VS Code and you start using the terminal from there, on the top right, it'll give you the option to use bash or ZSH. I've been using both and I can't tell the difference, but I also don't know anything.
I've always used bash, so yeah. But all right. All right, so the next things we're going to be installing, we're going to be installing SQLite, Postgres, and yeah, we're going to just do those two things right now. So the next thing we're going to be installing, the next thing we're going to install is SQLite. So SQLite is just a database. It's a light SQL database. It's literally just a file, but it allows us to run SQL queries on our machine. And we're going to be using SQLite throughout the program. So on your terminal, you can do brew install SQLite 3 like that, and then go ahead, press enter, and install SQLite. And then you're going to install Postgres. This is a database we're going to be installing on our machine. So if you do brew install Postgres like that, and then press enter, it allows us to have an actual database on our local machine. So Postgres is a piece of software that requires a server to interface with. It's easiest to let OS X launch the utility, keep the server running. Okay, before we get that. So brew install SQLite, and then brew install Postgres. And then once you do that, we're going to want this Postgres database to be running in the background of on our laptop or on our computer all the time, every time the machine boots up. In order to do that, we're going to run this command followed by this command. So once you brew install Postgres, copy and paste this command, press enter, and then copy and paste this command and press enter.
Hey, Tom, when I installed, when I did the echo path pipe tr /n, my setup was a little bit differently. Is a little bit different. Instead of user, user John bin, I have user local bin first.
Like this? Or like, so this comes, or that's fine. As long as these come in this specific order, like local bin comes before user bin, comes before bin, you should be good to go.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, no problem. All right, so once you've installed SQLite, Postgres, ran these two commands to keep your database running in the background, or running your database server in the background, you can run which Postgres. So if you run which Postgres in the terminal, press enter, you see user local bin Postgres. And then if you do run which PSQL, it should user local bin PSQL. So now Homebrew will keep our Postgres server alive so that we can just develop awesome apps and not worrying about the database. We don't have to worry about starting the database and all that stuff. It's just always running. So we can do, to ensure it's running, we can run this ps aux pipe grep Postgres. And if anything shows up, like something like this, you should be good to go. Doesn't have to have all this stuff. Yours is going to look different than mine. Doesn't have to look exactly like this. Yours is going to look different than what's on here. But if anything shows up, you'll be fine.
Even one row.
Yeah, what is it? What does it say?
Let's see here.
Does
It
it
has
have-
like 4609. It says grep Postgres. There's a bunch of numbers like yours, but it just says grep Postgres at the end of it.
That should be okay. And we can take a look at it later if something's. So right here.
It looks like your bottom row. Yeah.
Yeah, you should be fine. See, like right here. Yeah.
And if it is in ZSH, should we try to switch that to Bash, or is it fine?
It's up to you. We use Bash. You could. I personally would switch it to Bash just because I'm not familiar with ZSH.
Okay, I'm gonna have
How
to
we do
look
that.
up how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like you can do everything in ZSH for today, and if whenever you want to switch, you can go ahead and switch.
And then I'd have to redo these commands that we just did.
No.
Okay.
Nope. This is all done. You know, once you switch a different shell, you don't have to redo anything.
Perfect.
And there might be something you might have to redo, but it's fairly easy to fix. So once you have that all done, we can go ahead and actually, we've been doing a lot of stuff in here. If you just want to clear, you can actually type in the word clear and it'll pretty much not erase everything, but it'll bring the terminal, a blank space up to the very top. So if you want to get all that out. So finally, we're going to create a default database and test our Postgres client. So right here, we can actually create a database. So just run create DB $user. This is going to create a database at your root user. So if I do mine, I've already have a database created at my root user. So it says DB database creation failed, database TA Preet. That's the name of my Mac. So that's the name of my computer, Thomas Anthony Preet. Already exists. That's fine. But yours will probably create a new database. Then if you type PSQL $user, you're going to actually enter the SQL database in your shell. So if I type PSQL $user, right here it says TA Preet. This is the database that I'm currently located in. And now I can actually run like SQL queries and stuff in here. This is a SQL database. So as long as this works and you're able to get into your user database, you're fine. You don't have to do anything else. And now in order to get out, you can do \Q to quit. And now you're back to your terminal.
I'm actually getting a create DB :error. Could not connect to database template 1.
Okay, so something is probably running, your database is not running or something like that. That's okay. We will work through that.
Okay.
So it's okay if it's not working right now, but by the end of the day, it will be working.
Perfect. Thank you.
Did anyone run into warnings when they were installing SQLite?
I'm sorry?
Because I ran into some warning after I type in brew SQLite. It's telling me something about Mac already has a software in parallel. So if I install this again, it will create all kinds of trouble, and it gives me some suggestions. Should I follow the prompt?
So
I can type in a message in the Zoom console for everyone to see.
can you type it in the Slack?
Slack, yeah.
So does this actually error? Because like right now I'm airing out
No, that's
something else.
Yeah, something else.
Okay.
Yeah, I just type in the Mike's channel.
All right.
Oh, I think I have the same thing where it says that, like mine says KRB5 is keg only.
So next, we're going to actually install Python. Well, we're not going to install Python. We're going to actually upgrade Python. So Python already comes pre-built or built in with Mac, but it's an older version. It's version 2.7 or something. It might even be 2.3, but I think it's 2.7. So you can download it directly from the website, but we're going to actually install it directly from the terminal. So if you do brew install Python from the terminal, brew install Python like that, and you should install Python. So please note that it will take a while to install the most recent version of Python on your computer, but once it's finished, you can type in the Python, like literally just type in Python in your command, Python, and you can enter in a Python shell. So despite installing the most recent version of Python on your machine, your terminal still likes using the older version. So right now, my version is 3.7, but your alls will probably say 2.7 once you download it. It's because it kind of defaults to the old version. So once you do, let's take another like 3 minutes and install Python, and then we're going to actually adjust what type of version Python it defaults to. All right. So once you have Python installed, we're going to adjust the path to where essentially going to tell your computer anytime you want to run Python, you want to run the most recent version of Python that's installed, so a 3.7. So we can do that by creating a bash profile. The bash profile is essentially anytime you open up your terminal or start your machine, it's going to install or it's going to have like a custom version of whatever you want, whatever you kind of want. Think of it like, I don't even know, like if you're a high roller at like Vegas or something like that, you have a very specific sense Vegas wants you, or like whatever casino wants you to gamble at, they'll have like specific attributes or specific requirements that you want when you go to that casino. So when you walk up into the casino, that casino knows that specifically like, hey, I want chocolates in my room, I want alcohol in my room, or whatever, because you're going to be spending a lot of money there. Your bash profile, every time it loads, you're going to have custom attributes about your machine to be loaded. So here we're going to actually, the custom attribute we want is to have automatically run the newest version of Python, or I'm sorry, Python 3.7 instead of 2.7, the older version. So if you typed in right here, Python, and it had 2.7, we can change that by creating a bash profile. So in order to do that, we're going to run touch bash profile in the terminal. So if you do that, that's the touch bash profile. That creates a bash profile. And then you want to, that at the very top, we did the code command. So we're going to actually code the bash profile, which is going to open it up in VS Code. So if we do code bash profile, it automatically opens my bash profile right here. And this is all the custom things that I have when my command line or anytime it run my machine. So we're going to copy and paste this export path user local op Python, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to just paste it anywhere in here, like right here. So if I, oh, what the hell's going on? Right here, I pasted mine right here. I have a little comment right here that says this makes Python 3.7. So you can just paste it in here. Don't worry if you don't have all this stuff in here. That's totally fine. You don't need to worry about that yet. But literally just paste it in here and then save it by doing Command S or coming up to here, File, Save, and then close out of it. And then we can actually reload our bash profile. So we actually have to like reload. Every time we save something in our bash profile, we have to reload it. So we can source bash profile, which reloads it. And then if you type in Python in your terminal again, it should say 3.7. And in order to get out of this part, you can just do, I think it's Control D, or no, sorry. What the hell's going on? Well, yeah, it's Control D to get out of the Python thing. See, again, we're going to touch bash profile, which creates a bash profile. We're going to code it, which opens it up in VS Code. And then we're going to paste this export path anywhere in your bash profile, Command save, and then reload the bash profile by doing source bash profile. Let's keep moving. So now we're going to install Node, specifically Node Version Manager. So does anybody know what Node is?
Yeah, Node is the that's the back end of JavaScript. Or it's for or JavaScript for backend.
Yep, it essentially allows us to write JavaScript on our local machine, as well as it allows us to write JavaScript on the server side, on the back end, as Tommy said. So we're going to do brew install node nvm, which is Node Version Manager, and it's going to also install the newest version of Node. So if you run, where is it? Brew install nvm and click enter and install Node. And then we can open up our bash profile again by doing code bash profile. And it's probably going to, once it installs NVM or Node Version Manager, when it's installing everything, near the very end, it's going to tell you to do this. It's going to say, hey, open up your profile, some profile, and copy and paste this in here. So once it's done, you're going to open up your bash profile and then copy and paste this export NVM directory home. It says this loads the NVM and this loads the bash completion. So that's what I'm writing in here. From there, we're going to reload our bash profile by doing source bash profile. Again, every time you put something new in your bash profile, you're going to have to reload it by doing source bash profile. And then, go ahead.
When I'm in bash profile, how do I comment out something? I just want to label everything that I'm putting in here.
The easy way is using a hashtag, but you can do it quickly by doing command /.
Okay.
And then once you do that, you can install Node version 12 by doing nvm Node Version Manager install 12. So So right now, mine says version 12.18.4 is already installed. Now using Node. And the reason why we're installing Node Version Manager is because you might be working on projects or on production code bases that uses different versions of Node, so you can switch between different versions on your local machine based off of what project you're working on. So I'll give you a couple minutes for that.
Tom, this is Augie. Mine is still installing command line tools for Xcode from the homebrew install. Is it normal for it to take this long?
Yeah, it depends on your machine. What kind of laptop do you have?
2017 MacBook Pro.
Yeah, it could take that long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I be doing stuff simultaneously in term? I'm doing all that in iTerm. Can I be doing other stuff in the regular terminal?
So wait, it's installing Homebrew currently? What is it installing?
So I did the homebrew, put in, copy and pasted the homebrew command. Yep. It said, for a long time, it said downloading command line tools for Xcode. Now it says installing command line tools for Xcode.
Okay. I would wait until it's done because if you're installing Homebrew, a lot of this stuff might not work, like the brew install stuff. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to keep going. So the next thing we're going to do is install Git. Git is like a version control manager that manages different versions of your software. They're essentially like different save points. So and like different branches. So if you think about it, if you were working on like a piece of paper, or not a piece of paper, if you're working on like a presentation in a group project, and or if you're an author or a writer and you wrote a chapter and you saved it and you sent it off to the editor, but you kept on writing, and then your editor came back and like with changes, and now you have two different versions of it. It's kind of hard to manage all those versions. That's what Git is for. Essentially, Git is a version control manager that allows you to make changes, revert back changes. It's like different save points. So we can go ahead by doing brew install Git, and then once that's done, you can do which Git.
When I did which Git, it's mine is user/bin/git. It doesn't have local. Is that an issue? I don't know.
I don't know. It might be an issue. It might not be an issue. We'll find out quickly if it's an actual issue. Git. Let me see.
Okay.
Git.
It doesn't say local. It says user/bin/git. I don't know. Not sure. But I'm in the ZSH or whatever as well. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, if you run into issues, we'll mess around with it, but if not, then it might be good to go.
What version should our Git be?
Thanks.
What is the newest version of Git? Is it Git version Git? Like the most up-to-date version.
I believe the newest version is 2.24.1.
I'm running a 2.28 right now.
Oh, so maybe I need to update.
Yeah, I have 2.25.
Yeah, it's fine. Like you're not going to run into any issues with the current curriculum if you're on what Noah's on.
Yeah, latest source release is 2.28.
Okay. So next we're going to want to, there are a few steps you should configure so Git works well. The first is to set up a global git ignore file. So if you do touch git ignore and then run git git config global core excludes file, just run that real quick. Should be good to go. This allows us to ignore a bunch of stuff when we're pushing stuff to GitHub.
Hey Tom, I have a question on that.
Yep.
That global ignore file. So I know in the past, like, so you can add a git ignore for each project that you do. But so if you have this global ignore file, will that supersede the project, git ignore file you add? So you.
No, they'll coincide with one another. So we will be also creating git ignore files on a per project basis.
I see.
So we're almost done. So the next thing we're going to want to do is set up our git configs, or set up our git config setup to recognize our GitHub credentials. So every time we're pushing code up to GitHub, we don't have to manually type in our GitHub name, our GitHub password when we're pushing stuff up there. So we're going to want to set up a command line, or Git in our command, or GitHub in our command line by following these steps. If you go to username, click on the link. It should open up setting up your username in Git. We're on Mac. If you're Windows or Linux, there's there. So you can open up your terminal, set a Git username by copy and pasting this git config global user.name, and where it says Mona Lisa right here, this is where your GitHub username should be. So like mine is, I think, GitHub Tom Preet. So I should type in, git config. Where'd it go? Not Mona Lisa, but Tom Preet. And once you do that, to make sure it's set up correctly, you can do git config global username, and it should say your GitHub username. Once you're done with that, you can set up your command line git user email. If you scroll down, or is it setting up commit email address on GitHub, just follow these instructions. Oh, wait, here it is. Sorry, setting your commit email address in Git. So you open the terminal, git config, your user email, down here, setting your commit email address in Git. And then once that's all set, you can see it's my old email address. So yeah, just follow these instructions. You'll be good. And last, you got to cache it. You got to cache your password, so you don't have to type it in every time you push code up to GitHub. So if you follow these instructions, get credential right there. And then lastly, we want to make sure VS Code is our global text editor. So you can just type or copy and paste git config global core editor. There we go. We can confirm everything is working by typing the command git config global -l. And right here we have my username, my email address, and then my editor, and that git ignore global. The last thing we need to do, if you don't already have bash installed, is running brew install bash. To use this new version of bash, we'll need to add the etc shells is owned by the root. To verify this, we can ls la shells. See if this works. There we go. So just run through code etc shells, copy this command, add user local bin bash to the very last line. So if I do that, open it up, I should have all this stuff in here. These are all the list of shells I have access to. I have bash at the top, but I want to use, I'm adding this user local bin bash to the very last line. And now, once we're all set, we can launch a new terminal window and verify our setup. Clearing this. There's our bash. Echo shell. And that's my, right there. User local bin bash.